They are just like, Megan, I think it's time. We need to take her to the ER. Like, she's not okay.
Yeah.
So we jumped in the car and took her over to the hospital. And Tamara, that was probably the lowest low. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the moment. She was in heart failure.
Welcome to Stories of Hope in Hard Times, the show that explores how people endure and even thrive in difficult times, all with God's help. I'm your host, Tamara K. Anderson. Join me on a journey to find inspiring stories of hope and wisdom learned in life's hardest moments.
Today I am excited to introduce a friend of mine who was born in St. George, Utah, and has also lived in Texas, which is where I met her when our family lived in Texas. She went to Dixie State, and there she met and married her husband, Justin. She also gave birth to her first daughter, Sarah, there. And when she gave birth to Sarah at age 20, Sarah had a lot of challenges from the minute she first took breath, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then her second baby, when she was pregnant with him, he had cysts on his brain, and they were really worried about how that would work out. She has experienced with her husband job loss, miscarriage, they've lived through hurricanes, bed rest. She's also struggled with depression, anxiety, and panic attacks, and was finally diagnosed with a soft form of being bipolar. They now live in Utah and are on the board of directors for the Prader-Willi Syndrome Association. They love traveling, and this is appropriate since her husband is a pilot. And her family is her passion. And one interesting thing about her is if she had to get a job, she would love to make money organizing other people's houses. So, without further ado, I'm excited to introduce my friend, Megan Kroff. Megan, are you ready to share your story of hope?
I am.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. So let's start off talking with Sarah. She was your first baby and normal pregnancy?
Yes, very normal pregnancy.
Normal pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Take us to the delivery room and where everything started going a little crazy.
Yeah, well, we got a call early in the morning that I was to go to the hospital and be induced because she was like a week overdue.
Oh.
Yes, and so we showed up at the little St. George hospital over there. Anyways, the birth was very quick, very, very quick. From start to finish was about an hour and a half.
Did they induce you, or
Yes.
Was she C-section?
Yes, so induction and first
Wow.
babies don't usually go fast.
No, they do not.
Yes, and so she came very quickly, and when she was born, she was blue.
Oh, no.
All the APGAR scores, that they score your babies on, were all zeros.
Mm-hmm.
She was blue, not breathing. There was a respiratory team there to just grab her and get her to start breathing on her own, and then
Wow.
really, she didn't have a cry. Like, I didn't even hear her. That just took her from me. Like, we didn't have any idea what was going on, and they rushed her down the hallway off to go take care of her, and we didn't get to hold her or see her, and they brought her back to me later after she was stabilized and warm and had coloring back in her, and the doctors really didn't say a whole lot to me, but we started to notice things when I tried to breastfeed her, and she did not even have any type of a sucking reflex or a desire to feed or eat, and was just very weak. I kept hearing comments from the pediatrician that was on call to come check on her about how she was weight and birth. She's only 5 pounds. She seems weak and kind of, do you see how loose her skin is? Like, that she's lost weight. And I didn't know anything. Like, as far as I knew, her health was fine. We weren't expecting to have any health issues, health problems.
Right.
A lot of us have heard how there's a hole in our babies' hearts when they're first born. And one of the reasons why they need to scream and cry is that actually helps close up that hole in their heart. and sometimes it won't close. But the pediatricians will tell you that, oh, it could still close up in the next few days. It's sometimes a normal thing.
So did they see a hole in her heart?
Yes.
They did?
Yes. They were in communication. This is years ago, 18,
Right.
17 years ago. And so small hospital in St. George, they would communicate with the hospital up in Salt Lake City.
Right.
Called Primary Children's Hospital, cardiologists and things on call. They would send pictures up to them.
Right.
So they eventually, she'd been in the hospital for a week down in St. George as all this is going on.
Uh-huh.
And they eventually released us with an appointment at Primary Children's Hospital to come up and see the cardiologist because that hole in her heart wasn't closing.
Oh, gosh.
So we were released and we went home. I was actually setting up an appointment with the pediatrician on the phone, and she turned bright blue on me again right after I got done feeding her with an NG tube.
Wow.
And so I yelled on the phone, and the nurse said, "You just come to our office. It's like a block away. It's really close."
Gosh.
And my mom rushed me down the street to the pediatrician office. It would have taken longer for 911.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So she started to gain color and on the scary car ride over there. Sorry. We got in the doctor's office, and this doctor of ours was really special. He was an amazing doctor. He just grabbed her and cradled her and grabbed the oxygen. And after things settled down and we got her back breathing, he was a man of great faith. And he would pray with us.
Mm-hmm.
And he decided that we needed to go now to go up to Salt Lake to go see that cardiologist. So we needed to figure out what was rocking this little baby's body. We were questioning back and forth whether we should call Life Flight at one point.
Oh, gosh.
Or to just let us drive her up there.
That's like a 5-hour drive, right?
Yes, it's a 5-hour drive. So she eventually stabilized well enough and was doing, we hung out for a few hours there, as you can imagine.
You did. After a scare like that, I'd be scared to leave.
Yes, exactly. So we eventually felt okay about, let's just take the oxygen. I actually had my mom sitting there with me. I had my husband's support. Like, I felt like we could do this. We could get in the car, we can drive up there. We've got a cardiology appointment first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. We had an oximeter on her as well. We were safe. Mm-hmm. We were able to watch her oxygen levels and such. As we would go higher elevation, her oxygen levels would drop. Got a little further north and drove straight to my sister's house that lived a few miles away from the hospital where we had the appointment.
Right.
So luckily we had family.
That is good.
Her oxygen was stabilized at that time. And while we were in the middle of eating, the oximeter kept dropping. My husband went in the room and said, my brother-in-law, we're just checking on her, making me eat.
Yeah.
So I could take care of myself.
Yeah.
Yes, and they are just like, man, I think it's time. We need to take her to the ER.
Right.
This isn't upholding. Like, she's not okay.
Yeah.
So we tucked dinner away and jumped in the car and took her over to the hospital. And
so did you take her to Primary Children's?
Primary Children's Hospital, ER. That's where the cardiology appointment was the next morning. And Tamara, that was probably the lowest low of any of the trials that you just named off that I've been through. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the moment. She was in heart failure.
Oh my gosh.
And as much oxygen as those doctors would put on her, her heart wasn't okay and her oxygen wasn't upholding. And her heart was very enlarged. Those are the things we were hearing from doctors, and not a lot we weren't hearing from the doctors because they were so attentive on this little bare body that was laying there on the table. Justin and I got shoved across the room over on another bed that would have been for an adult in the ER, but we sat and clung to each other on that bed. I'll never forget that room. And at one point, the alarms were going off. I'm not sure. I can't remember if it was code blue or what kind of code it was. But we know doctors rushed to that room and stood around her. Really, I felt life was slow by at that time. I kept poking and prodding. And I remember praying a lot. And that night, I was still praying, Father, save her. My Father, take this from her. Please don't let him poke on her one more time. I can't see her in that pain. I was scared. I was worried that I'd never get to meet this little girl who she really was, or raise her, and I wanted that opportunity with her. I'd waited to be a mom a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. Those were the kind of prayers that were going through me. And there was one significant moment I will never, ever forget. And it was when my prayer changed to, Father, take her. It's time. Please take her. I can't watch her go through this pain anymore. I can't. Mm-hmm. And I started to say things like, I can live a life without her. I know you'll help me do that. I know that I won't be okay. It will hurt every single day, but please take her. And then my prayer changed to, Father, do whatever it is that wants to happen here. Whatever it is for this little girl, for her family, and Tamara. The alarms and the oxygen stat started to come back. It started to stabilize. But she was stabilized enough to where doctors and nurses started to step away and disappear. And then doctors were able to talk to us and, inform us that she's in heart failure. Her heart is very enlarged. They never said anything to us like heart transplant or things like that, but they said if you need anyone to be here to see this baby alive, it's probably time.
Wow.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
God, what a thing to tell.
Yes. We had parents. My mom was there, but my husband's parents still were down in St. George. My dad was still in St. George. That's where he was, and we got them on the phone. And I remember my dad saying, "What do you need, Megan? What can I do?" And I remember just crying and not even being able to get it out, but just saying, "I need my dad. Dad, I'm not sure you'll see her alive." I'm his fourth daughter. I'm one of, I have a little brother, but him is baby. And he dropped things and he came. And my in-laws are so good. They came for Justin. They came for us. Luckily, they were able to admit Sarah to the hospital, and she ended up staying there for a month.
Wow.
She stayed alive.
Wow. Yeah.
We went through lots of tests, lots of things every single day, as you can imagine.
Uh-huh.
And we had family visit and come all the time. The nurses said we won the award for best family support. We were always getting phone calls and support. It was a difficult time. We never did find out. We knew what was wrong with her heart. We eventually found out through all those testings that she had a VSD that was large, that was 9 millimeter wide for a little 5-pound baby.
So explain what a VSD is.
A ventricle septic defect, which is the hole in our heart that you hear people talk about all the time. And hers was very low in her heart and back far. So that was significant because when you talk heart surgery, to repair a heart, like a hole like that, very difficult to get to.
Oh, I see.
And when you have a very weak baby and a very, failure to thrive, she was diagnosed.
Yeah.
They weren't wanting to do heart surgery on this baby. And so they would kind of just talk about it. And then, no, we can't.
Because she was so little.
So little. So weak.
5 pounds.
5 pounds. Prader-Willi Syndrome, now we know, are babies like this. They're failure to thrive. They're very weak. They don't suck. They don't move. They don't cry. The little cries just sound like little tiny kitty cat whines. Just super, super weak baby. So what the doctors didn't know at that time, and wouldn't for a few years, is that she had this Prader-Willi syndrome. They were looking for some type of a syndrome with the heart failure that we were looking at.
Right.
So the other thing she had going on in her heart that we did find out in that month was called Epstein anomaly, which is a valve that just doesn't close all the way.
Gotcha.
So if those valves are severely impaired, then usually the babies won't survive.
Wow.
Even weeks of life. Hers was minor. So they kept a close eye on that. But as you can imagine, seeing a little heartbeat or pump on the screen every time we'd go for an echocardiogram, the reds and the blues were all flowing where they weren't supposed to be flowing. So anyway, she was just a very sick little baby. And so they got her on heart medications and things. were able to stabilize her and teach me how to feed her by an NG tube. That's where the tube goes through their nose and down to their belly.
So that because she wasn't sucking.
Because she wasn't sucking. She wasn't able to nurse, not able to feed from a bottle. But I would, as a mom, I would go through the whole process of pumping and saving breast milk to feed to her. So we would mix it with a higher concentrate of formula to help give her extra calories.
Right.
Power milk.
She needed it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so I was doing that every 2 hours and sending a little mom. And then we would try and bottle feed her as well. She ended up having that NG tube down her until she was a year old.
Wow.
When we were finally able to teach her how to eat enough fluids out of a cup. Because she still was not able to suck out of straws or whatever when she was a year old.
So did she ever get heart surgery?
She never had heart surgery.
Really?
It's a miracle. It really is. I mean, we would talk about it and think that she needed it. And as she's grown older, her heart has actually, that VSD that we talked about, the hole in her heart has actually closed up. So it's so small that it doesn't need to be repaired at this time.
Wow.
The Epstein,
yes.
not only that valve that wouldn't close all the way, it has always been watched. And she's okay. Like they're saying that maybe they might repair it when she's a 40 or 50-year-old woman.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
You know, we're going to keep an eye on it. But I believe it's a miracle of why God has helped those two little heart problems heal enough that she lives a very healthy life as far as her heart goes.
That really is amazing.
Yes.
So the miracle there was you being able to change your prayers and being able to say thy will be done, basically, which I can only imagine was probably the hardest prayer of your life.
Yes, it was.
But sometimes I've had to reach that point too, and I know others I've interviewed have as well. And sometimes I think God just wants to know that we're willing to say thy will be done. And sometimes then the miracle happens, and sometimes then, people pass on. And that's the hardest thing of saying thy will be done. And is we have to be okay with God's will, even though we're not often,
right.
Right. That is the hardest thing ever. Wow.
I think it is the hardest thing. I believe that that's where it all turned. When I was willing to say that and change my prayer, change my heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So not very long after this, you got pregnant again. You felt God wanted you to have another one. And that wasn't smooth sailing either.
No, it was not.
So talk us through that.
That was a difficult decision. I was young. I was very young.
Yeah.
I was a baby. I didn't think so then. But looking back in hindsight, I was just growing up myself.
Yeah.
And Justin and I, we always were prayerful about what the Lord's will was for us and what we should be doing, of course. But we started to feel this prompting that there was a little spirit to come to our family. Mm-hmm. And it was a bit of an unusual time. It was about when Sarah was a year old that we were really getting serious about this prayer, like, what do we do about children? And God, what is it that you want?
Yes.
What do you want us to do? What do you have for us up there? What are you going to send us? So we would do a lot of scripture reading, a lot of praying. We felt like we came home one night full that it was time that we needed to have this baby. And sure enough, I got pregnant, and I won't lie, there was a lot of judgment passed upon us from friends and close people to us. And we had a daughter sitting there that we weren't sure exactly what the syndrome was yet.
Right.
Geneticists that we would meet with every 4 to 6 months up at the Primary Children's Hospital were looking for still.
Right.
We weren't sure exactly what all her health problems were, because we knew there was more there. We knew there was more than this little heart, these two little heart problems there. Right. She was still being fed by an NG tube. She was still very sick. But we knew it was the Lord's will, and I think that's why we had that hope, that we had that desire to do this and bring another spirit into our home. And I was treated like a high-risk pregnancy.
I bet, after that first one.
Yes, and at this time now we didn't live in St. George anymore. We were up at Salt Lake, so we lived close to the hospital.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of really neat professionals at our fingertips. And
Right.
this particular time we went in for an ultrasound, and they just do them really early when you're a high-risk pregnancy like that. What we needed to worry about was there was like a 50-50 chance we could have a child with the heart problems that Sarah was born with.
Oh, gotcha.
So we were watching that heart carefully of this little baby. And it was an interesting ultrasound as the technician was going around on things and with the baby. And she was quiet. Justin and I were joking and having fun. And my mom actually happened to be visiting with us just that day and came into the ultrasound as well. And it's not a great feeling when the technician walks out and says, "I'll be right back. I'm going to go get someone that can talk to you."
Oh, gosh.
I didn't want to hear that very bad that
No.
day.
You're like, okay.
Yes. And the doctor proceeded to come back and explain to us that our little child had cysts on his brain.
Wow.
And they were quite large cysts, and he showed us on the monitor. And then proceeded to tell us that these cysts sometimes will turn into what's called Trisomy 18, where these babies will have rock-bottom feet and clenched up little hands. And if they survive birth, will only live for maybe a couple of weeks at most.
Oh, gosh.
And
this on top of what you already are dealing with.
yes,
What were you
difficult.
thinking? Seriously.
It was difficult. It was really hard, and I thought, why? Why, Lord? You told us that you had another spirit for us. That's not for us. That's a quick hello, and then I'm taking him from you. You know, that's what was going through my head. It was really difficult, and this awesome doctor that we had was so good with us. But he, later we saw him in the week in his office after he got the results from the ultrasound, and he proceeded to tell us, you know, "I'm here for you. We're going to get through this. It's going to be okay." And he said, you know, an option you have is we can go in and do an amniocentesis on this baby, which is a little bit risky.
Yeah.
But that's where they stick the large needle inside of the mother's womb and test that baby's blood to really see what's going on in that body. And he said, you know, I feel like maybe that's something that you guys need. So you have some hope or just more knowledge, or what are we really dealing with right now? And so he gave us that option. He said, you know, you can go in and go do that next ultrasound that you get. So we had a few weeks to sit and wait. In those couple of weeks, I would say I questioned a lot. I questioned God a lot. Was it a faith crisis? Yes, I think it was. Habits of my faith have always been important to me over the years. They've kept me afloat. And I look back at those couple of weeks, and I was keeping those habits up of praying and reading scriptures and going to church. But I think I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I call that a little faith crisis I was having.
So you're going through the motions.
Going through the motions. Because I knew I needed to. I knew in my past that when I did those things, I would feel close to God and I'd find peace. So I was going through those motions to hopefully feel that way, and I wasn't feeling it.
No.
I asked that I would be prayed over by some people close to me right before we went into this amniocentesis, and it was a special blessing prayer. And I felt really close to the Spirit. I started to feel peace, and this is like the night before we went in to go have this done. And when we sat there in that room, the doctor actually was quite abrupt with us and said, "Why are you here?" And Justin and I looked at each other and we just thought, well, really, do we have to tell you how sick our daughter is that's sitting at home and everything we've been through? Like, this is why we're here. And he flipped the screen and showed us there is no cysts on this baby's brain.
Wow.
Why are you here?
Wow.
And it was just, Tamara, that was a flip. And I'd like to say that, my faith came back and my faith crisis didn't happen because of that miracle that happened. But I'll tell you, it happened right before that blessing I had asked to go in. It happened when I was praying. I had words go through my head that were not my words that I usually speak to myself. Do you know what I mean? I didn't recognize that as my voice in my head. I recognized it as someone else. Someone else was speaking to me and said the words to me, "How special are you, no matter what happens, to be a part of bringing one of my children into this world?" And then there was kind of silence, and then those words came back to me. "And how special is this child that needs to be born and have a body? Mm-hmm. It's my plan for him." And that brought me peace. God's watching. God's protecting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's aware. He knows this, and he's right. I felt a boost of strength and hope in that moment when those words came into my mind that, you know what? If that happens, if he is born with these rock bottom feet and these clutched hands and doesn't survive, you're right. Then how special am I? How special is this child? Mm-hmm. That me and this child are a part of that significant moment for some reason. I don't know all the reasons why, but I felt great peace, like great love from God. And then sitting there on that table again, as the doctor flipped that screen to show us there's no cysts here. Wow. You don't need to be here. And the rest of that pregnancy, Tamara, was a reminder of that God knows, God's aware. And I'll say, his little delivery wasn't easy. It was very difficult, and Spencer was 3 weeks early.
Oh, wow.
We hadn't prepared adequately. Justin, we sent him to go register us into the hospital. And I went upstairs by myself, and the nurse came, but she had just given me a gown to go in the bathroom and go get changed, and I started hemorrhaging all over. Scared me to death. I had no way to call the nurses or for help. The bed wasn't plugged up. I was searching for something, and so I just started to yell, "Somebody help me! Please, somebody, I need somebody's help." Right. And do you know who the first person that came in was? Actually the doctor.
Oh, wow.
And he rushed in and he said, "I knew you needed me." So then everybody just starts hustling and bustling around me to help me, and he needed to stop this bleeding. Come to find out, I guess there was a bunch of blood vessels at the opening that just needed to be stopped. That if this baby would come down far enough, fast enough, then the bleeding would probably stop, he told me.
Wow.
That wasn't happening.
Oh, gosh.
I was praying. I was starting to feel intense pain, as you can imagine, and just worried. And all at once, Justin walked in, and the anesthesiologist walked in at the same time.
Hallelujah.
Yes. So I get Justin over, and I say, "I need you to pray over me right now." Mm-hmm. As soon as Justin closes his prayer, the bleeding stops.
Wow.
And it's okay. Mm-hmm. And the anesthesiologist had gotten there, and it was all right. And literally, Spencer was in my arms like 20 minutes later.
Wow.
It was just a blessing. And I was bawling. Not only because things were okay, was because Spencer was screaming when he was born. He was screaming, "Hold my baby." Mm-hmm. They handed it to me, and I wanted him to just keep screaming. I just wanted him really strong and healthy, and he was bright pink. It was the best thing I'd ever seen in my life. God was there, and he heard our prayers, and he knew I needed that all to happen at that moment. And it came for me, a miracle that I needed. And you know, Tamara, that little boy, our family needed him. Yeah. I needed him. He is a really, really special spirit. Sarah needs her brother.
That's awesome. So you mentioned before that Sarah was officially diagnosed with Prader-Willi Syndrome when she was 3 or 4?
3 years old.
3 years old. And so why don't you tell us a little bit more about what this is, educate us on this syndrome.
So it is actually a chromosome that they are missing. There's a couple ways that looks. Sarah's is a deletion. Her paternal side of her 15th chromosome just floated off somewhere. And so that causes problems because you're missing a lot of things in your body you should have. And then there's another way that it manifests itself, and it's called UPD, or uniparental disomy. So unless you're in biology.
It's been a while since I took advanced biology, so you're going to have to refresh my brain on that.
What that means, kids that have that UPD on their 15th chromosome, is that the maternal side is there twice. Oh. So they've got a couple different things that are different, but a lot of the same symptoms that will manifest with this Prader-Willi syndrome.
Okay.
There's one other way that you can have the Prader-Willi syndrome, and that's if you're sometimes in a really bad car accident or something like that where you get brain damage at one specific spot.
Oh.
Then you will get the same symptoms of Prader-Willi syndrome, but your chromosomes don't look that same way.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's kind of a complicated syndrome. It's not super well known, kind of rare. Doctors are more aware of it nowadays. But at the time when Sarah was born, they were taking blood tests to see if there was additions or deletions or whatever on her chromosomes that would help make sense of what was going on in her body. And all these tests were coming back normal, like that there wasn't anything wrong. By the time that she was 3 years old, they had a test out there that was like 100,000 times more accurate. Like that it could read the tips of all the ends of all your chromosomes. And it came back saying that she had what was called Prader-Willi syndrome. Well, at 3 years old, she was doing so well that the doctors didn't believe that it was her blood.
Oh, really?
They wondered if her blood had actually been mixed up because she was starting to speak and she started to walk when she was 18 months old. Not really well, and she wasn't really strong, but like that was kind of unheard of for Prader-Willi syndrome. So they sent in again for another blood test, which happens a lot in the Prader-Willi world. But there was this one specific test that finally came back and said, no, definitely this is Prader-Willi syndrome for sure. And as Justin and I would read about it and study it, we knew it was our daughter. We knew it was true. It's funny because these babies will go from failure to thrive, like we talked about, to all of a sudden when they turn 3 years old, they're 2 years old, they'll flip and they'll start to just eat and eat and eat and eat.
Oh, wow.
And
opposite problem.
Complete opposite problem. Yes, like where we were sitting in therapy trying to entice her to eat with like even hot sauce and like sour drops and like crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden she turned this 3 years old and she was gaining weight. Like I was having a hard time finding clothes that would fit on her. She was getting really chubby. We would find her waking up in the middle of the night and she would go get cereal boxes and the snacks out of the cupboard and sit in front of Barney on TV and just start to eat them. And we'd think people were in our house and, and it would just be Sarah out there just eating and she would never stop.
Really?
So she's my first child. So I also had Spencer, but he was only a baby at that time, but she was constantly eating and I just thought that was kind of normal. So I just kept feeding her.
Yeah.
You know, we were healthy eaters, so it wasn't bad food she was eating, but she just wouldn't stop. She would never, ever stop. That was symptoms of this Prader-Willi syndrome.
Really?
They do not ever feel full or satisfied. They will not ever get that satisfied feeling that we do.
Interesting.
So I've actually had it explained to me by some Prader-Willi experts that, you know, when we're really hungry and we want a steak dinner, and we just can't wait for that first bite. It's so good. So good. Well, Prader-Willi syndrome, their last bite is still that good.
Really?
Yes. And they'll just keep eating. Every bite is that good to them. So she has this complete obsession, complete OCD over any food, which is so hard when they can't stop eating.
Oh, yeah.
So the other thing that's complicated that works against us is that they have a really slow metabolism.
Oh.
So to burn calories and maintain a healthy weight is so difficult for these.
Wow.
So we have to have nutritionists that keep up on her weight and her diet. She's very developmentally delayed. So there's kind of a spectrum, sort of like in the autism world, of how that developmental really is.
So it can be severe or high functioning within the Prader-Willi syndrome.
My Sarah, our experience is that she's probably, she's 16 years old now, and she's probably at like a 4th or 5th grade level math and reading. She finally is comprehending it. So grand.
Oh, man. That's awesome.
Yes. So she's finally understanding some things that she actually reads. So to teach a child that you have this broken tummy, that you have to stop eating right now, as a parent, you can imagine is very stressful.
Oh, I can imagine.
To say,
you probably have a lock on your pantry.
Yes. I do.
Yes, so do I.
Yep. It helps in our world, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yes. So all of our food is all locked up behind a lock and key behind our pantry. We have a bike lock on my 2-sided refrigerator, and we have to lock up our garbages. Things are not gross to her.
Wow.
So there was one time we were out hiking in the mountain, and she leaned over and picked up bird poop and popped it in her mouth. And I was like, "Oh no! Don't do that! Why?" And she goes, "I thought it was a chocolate chip." And she just proceeded to eat it. And I said, after I got over it for a minute, "Was that good?" And she's like, she just shrugged her shoulders, whatever. So it takes a little of supervision.
Yeah.
As you can imagine. So we're not able to leave her alone.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a good sense of humor. When we moved into this house in Utah, we couldn't find her anywhere on the day we moved. And after a while searching and knocking on doors up and down the street, she had just invited herself into someone's home to go see what they were having for dinner. And this sweet lady, we become good friends now, but this sweet lady just had her come in and didn't know. I guess she assumed it was from the crowd down the street with the U-Haul, but just started feeding her. So of course Sarah was happy. She was going to stay. But so it's a difficult syndrome. It's a difficult thing. We can't leave her by herself ever.
Wow.
It's a hard syndrome. There's tantrums, outbursts, and anger. And usually it's tied back to food somehow.
Oh, I bet.
So she's the sweetest girl, and she loves people. She wants to please. She wants to be so good for her Heavenly Father and Jesus. But there's times that this disability just gets the better of her. Her little spirit can't win that physical body. And there's been times
she's just hungry.
Yeah. There's been times where she has kicked me down the stairs where I've had to have men help carry her out of a church meeting, or, we do have like a handicap pass in our car, mostly so that I can park close and say, if you act up, I'm parked right here. Yeah. We're out. Yeah. We're leaving. It's difficult. It's a difficult, teenage years have been horrible.
Oh gosh, I can only imagine.
That traces back to another reason why that chromosome is so important is your hormones in your body are not correct because of that chromosome missing. So there's a lot of hormones that are just not right. So as you can imagine, in the teenage world, your hormones really are trying to figure out life. Yeah. So she's become harder the older that she has gotten.
Now, is it supposed to get easier will she even out?
I have heard that a lot of times when those hormones even out, they are okay, that they are better. I think in like their adult years, sometimes not, because it's just so different. I think
different case by case.
There's more of a chromosome missing in some kids than there are
that makes
others. Sense. And so it's case by case. You don't know. Okay. You don't know what's coming, which is a very difficult thing as parents in the special needs world. We know that. Yeah. The stress of an unknown future.
Yeah. So that is difficult. Yes. My goodness. So
we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we're going to talk to Megan about anxiety, depression, and being bipolar, and also some of the lessons she has learned along this journey and her advice that she would share. How many of you out there feel like your life is chaotic, crazy, and completely awful compared to the norm? What if I were to tell you that you are normal for you? I am so excited to announce that my book, Normal for Me by Tamara K. Anderson, is now available for purchase on Amazon. This book took me 10 years to write, and I share 20 years worth of lessons learned in my life detours, including being in a car accident and having 2 of my children diagnosed on the autism spectrum. In this book, I share the secrets of how I made it from despair to peace with God's help. I also include a bonus diagnosis survival guide at the very end of my Normal for Me book. The Diagnosis Survival Guide includes 12 tips to survive and thrive in tough times. Wouldn't you like to know what those are? So what are you waiting for? Grab your copy of Normal for Me today on Amazon.
And we're back.
You mentioned before that all this stress being a special needs parent played into anxiety and depression. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know your family moved to Houston and you had a miscarriage. And then once you did get pregnant, you were placed on strict bed rest. And I can't even imagine how that would be to try to take care of your daughter who had special circumstances and be on bed rest. So why don't you take us to that point?
I was on strict bed rest, so I was not allowed to get off that couch. I stayed there all the time, every day, for 3 whole months. Learned a lot of things from that couch. A lot of things. One of them was to ask for help.
Yes.
And there was no way I could do anything. So another thing that plays into all the stress that I'm building up for you on Megan Kroff is that I'm a pilot's wife. So my husband works at the airlines and he's gone days at a time.
Yeah.
And then home some days. And it's great when he's home because when he's home, he's awesome. He's right there with me. He's super supportive and he's there. But when he's gone, he's gone.
Yeah.
You don't get any help. So a blessing we had at this time that he was actually laid off from his job at the airlines.
Probably didn't feel like a blessing at the time.
No. Looking back, we see that it's a huge blessing. But if he had been gone during those 3 months that I was on bed rest, I'm not sure how we would have made it because we had neighbors and friends come take our kids during the day to take care of things and bring me food and kind of clean our house and do laundry and things like that. But he would leave and he actually had a job at a furniture store selling furniture.
Oh, there you go.
As a pilot.
There you go.
That was a bit stressful.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was hard to watch him go through that. But looking back now, that he was able to be home at night and he was there to help me with those kids was a huge blessing.
It was a blessing in disguise.
Yes, exactly. I gave birth to Allison finally on the day they let me off bed rest. So it worked. It worked. And she was not as quick and fast as my other 2 kids.
Yeah.
And I bounced back from that birth. I was so happy to be off that couch.
Oh, yeah.
I was making bread early in the morning, and I was teaching preschool and teaching piano lessons again, and things were just grand, and I was trekking around along just doing awesome. Just amazing. My husband was gone, and I got this, he was selling furniture, and 4 months into that, my body said no more. And I thought I was having a heart attack. And it felt like sharp pains in my back and sharp pains in my chest. And I couldn't breathe.
Really?
I was standing there talking to Justin in the kitchen, and I was literally like, I couldn't breathe. I was trying to hang upside down on the couch or do whatever I could to just get a breath of air. So he stuck me in the car and just drove me straight to the ER.
Yeah.
We got in there because they weren't checking my heart. Looking at things like this. And they just kept asking me questions of like, are you under a lot of stress? And what's going on at home? And I'm going, I don't care what's going on at home. Like, you probably ought to give me oxygen or something, I was mad. I was just really, really frustrated. And that day was the first I'd ever heard of, well, you might experience what's called a panic attack. And I was like, I don't experience a panic attack. I am just fine. And sure enough, we went on a little journey and met with some other doctors after this and finally realized what they were telling me was true. That I am having anxiety attacks and panic attacks. And it turned worse after that day.
Really?
It got worse. It got to where I wasn't able to answer my phone. I wasn't able to open my door. I wasn't able to talk to people, look in their eye. That was unusual for me. I'm a social person. And I like being out in my community and staying busy and doing things. And I loved going grocery shopping and doing these things, but I couldn't do that anymore. I finally, after trying many different therapists, found a really good therapist that helped me, and I got medicated. And that took a road. That was a long road. I need the right medicines that can help me. And a certain psychiatrist that I finally landed on was able to tell me that I had a soft form of bipolar. And he knew this because as I would tell him about my history, he would explain to me that those 4 months after I had Allison was what was called a manic phase, that I was functioning way beyond what any normal person should be able to function.
Right.
And taking care of this special needs kid and doing all of those other things I listed off. And he said, your body just couldn't handle it physically anymore.
Yeah.
Where your mind thought you could.
Right.
And you were going. And that's why you plummeted, and that's where you hit panic attack and anxiety. And he said, your anxiety is getting worse because the medication the doctors keep trying to give you isn't for bipolar. It's for
anxiety.
Depression or anxiety, and it's making it worse. It's making you be more anxious, more panic driven, and these things.
And that's how you were feeling it.
That's how I was feeling at the time. And he knew from my history, I was sharing journal entries and things. And then he was able to recognize these patterns with me, get me medicated properly for the bipolar. Got my medications leveled out, and then mentioned I found that really neat therapist and was able to start to figure out why I really was having these anxiety attacks, these panic attacks. And it was stress. It was all of these trials, all of these hard things that were on top of me. And honestly, I thought I was dealing with it okay, but I think being in manic phases of this bipolar was making me feel like I was managing and I was okay. And I needed to find out really why and deal with that.
Right. You had to go to the root
of the problem. Figure out how to deal with my stress and manage it.
So you mentioned that you started a program with your therapist. Would you mind talking to us about that and what that helped you do?
I had found just through this program called TERRAP, TERRAP. And it's a structured 20-week program that would help me learn how to deal with stress and anxiety, how to get over it, and to help it not debilitate my life anymore.
Right.
So that I could function with this. And I think it's still there. It's still there in me, but I've learned how to function to where I don't see symptoms of it.
That's amazing.
Yes. And it was an amazing program. It looked something like a workbook where she would give me a chapter at a time. She would teach me something, and then I'd go home and do homework in a week. And she would have me journaling every single day. And I started to begin to see patterns in my journaling. She wanted me writing down my self-talk, things that were going through my head. And that's where I began to uncover some things. Like, I was worried about what other people thought of me. I was worried about some other things that were there that weren't right, weren't things that God would want me worried about. And I was able to uncover those writing in this journal. So it was like workbooks, homework, journaling.
That's amazing.
Yes.
It sounds like something I could benefit from. I'm sitting here going, how can I fit this into my life?
Right. Probably not right now. You're busy.
No, but that is so amazing. Okay, we will definitely put this TERRAP information in the show notes so that others who are listening go, hey, I could benefit from something like that, can find it and benefit from it as well. So let's jump into some of the lessons you've learned through this journey.
I tried to answer this question the other day and just wrote pages and pages. So my favorites, one of the biggest things was that we cannot let this Prader-Willi Syndrome control our family. We have got to control our family and keep our dreams and our hopes as a family alive, and then add the Prader-Willi Syndrome into it. I wanted to travel. I'm a pilot's wife. I'm so excited about that in my life. You can't travel with Prader-Willi. That will never happen. And that started to discourage me. That started to make me feel like I was losing hope. And so Justin and I put our heads together, and as we would work through these workbooks with this therapy, we realized that we have got to keep our goals and things alive. And Heavenly Father, God is going to help us do that. He sent us Sarah for a reason, and this is who we are, and He knew this. He sent Sarah, this Prader-Willi child, to our house. Sorry, I get emotional thinking about it, but we needed to figure out why God sent her to this house, that He knew that these kinds of things were going to go on here, that we were going to be traveling, that Justin was going to be gone a lot at a time. He knew who we were. So we began to figure out how we were going to travel no matter what.
I love this.
I really needed to know.
It probably gave you hope.
Yes.
Though.
Yes. What did this look like? I would do things like, okay, I've got to teach Sarah what foods are healthy and good for her body and what aren't. Mm-hmm. So we found a little program called the Red, Yellow, Green Diet for little kids on diabetes, usually is what it's used for. But it was a visual we could teach her, like green foods are really good for you. Red foods are stop foods. And I would plaster these things up on my wall to teach her. But we were determined to teach her these things so that she could start to be a part of her diet.
Right.
So that eventually, when we travel, then she can be in a restaurant looking at a menu with us going, well, that's not a great. So it looked like that. It looked like me going, okay, we want to get here with our special needs child. What do I have to do? What are the steps I have to take to get there? How can I train her to get on an airplane with me? We practice a lot.
I bet you did.
So we would fly like every couple months.
And you knew someone that had an in there.
Yes, I did. So every couple months, I would pack my little kids up. We'd go visit Grandma and Grandpa because it was free in Utah. And we needed to see them. It was all, but in that process, I was thinking in my head, I'm teaching her.
Yes.
I've got to teach her that this is what we do. We walk through airports, and this is how we do it. And we get on the plane. And when we're mad, we tantrum about something. We don't have to kick people. We don't have to be thrown off airplanes. You know, there was a couple moments that were really
probably
hard.
Worried. Yeah.
Yes, and we fly standby. Like, we're last on the plane. And they only take you if they want to take you. So I can't have a child that's screaming and crying and kicking, you know?
Yeah.
So we had to practice. That's kind of what that looked like. That's why a lesson learned for us is I couldn't let this Prader-Willi Syndrome control our family. Like, we were.
You had to figure out how to teach her what the skills she needed to learn so that she could help all of you achieve your dreams.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm sure she enjoys visiting people.
Does. She loves people.
Yeah.
Loves people. She wanted to get to that point too. I know she did. Someday when we're standing in heaven, she can really tell me. I know she'll really tell me that. Like, thank you for not staying home every day. That would have driven me crazy.
Oh, me too, sister.
Yes. So another little dream of what that looked like for us was Justin's really an athletic guy, and he loves running. He loves it. He wants to get out and he wants to do that. We haven't started snow skiing again together because it's so expensive, but we're about to start that.
Nice.
So how do we get Sarah on the ski slopes with us? How do we get her out there running? Our son Spencer runs cross country. He runs like a mile in like 5 minutes. He's super fast.
Gosh.
Yes. So what do we make that look like? How do we hike as a family and have Sarah keep up with us? Well, we've had to keep her fit, physically fit, and keep her exercising. That was really difficult. It took us years to teach her how to ride a bike.
Yes, I know that feeling.
Yes. It took us years to get her to even walk around the block with us. So, would you believe now at 16 years old? This is unheard of for Prader-Willi. They don't do stuff like this. She is running on the high school cross-country team.
Wow.
She came home from practice this week telling me that she ran 4 miles.
Wow.
And it's not adaptive that she's doing. She's running with the cross-country team. Wow. She's slower, and she's the slowest one on the team, but she is going. And she is doing it, and she's running, and it's amazing. It's amazing to watch her do these things that I was told she would never do.
Yeah.
Prader-Willi Syndrome kids can be 400 pounds and can't move.
Right. Like,
we had to figure out, how are we going to help her be a part of this family? So I think that's why that's such an important, like, I'm super passionate about that. If you've got a special needs child, what is it going to look like for you? How are you going to make your family function still?
Yes. And that is important, because I've noticed that with our kiddos as well. I think this is important, this concept of, I think so many times people get a diagnosis like that in their family, and it just paralyzes the family. And it obviously, you went through a period of, I guess you could call it paralyzation,
Absolutely,
you know?
I did. Yes.
And I think it takes almost a mental shift of, I'm not going to let this hold me back.
Yes.
We can survive and thrive, maybe in a different way than we originally thought, but how can we make this work? And that's where it's a good thing to brainstorm with other people and include God in those brainstorms, because he'll give us ideas on how we can specifically implement these new dreams and visions into our family specifically.
I know he can.
Yeah.
I know he did for us.
Yeah.
I absolutely give him that glory that I did not do this on my own.
Yeah.
You know, he's helped us get her on that track team by just planting us like little ideas along the way. Do this, do this, do this.
And that's fantastic. So don't let disabilities hold you back. Find maybe a different and unique way of approaching them with God's help, right?
Absolutely. With God's help.
That's amazing.
Vital.
I love this. I love this. Oh, what a great lesson. All right, what else do you want to share with us? What other lessons?
You never know what goes on behind another's closed door.
Mm-hmm.
I have stood in grocery store aisles and been completely judged. I've stood at the zoo and been completely judged.
Mm-hmm.
I've stood in church and have people say things to me that I could have let destroy me and never go back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I've learned by this is that they aren't walking in my shoes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize what it took for me to get Sarah out that door to church that day.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize why I'm talking about 0 calories in the grocery store aisle with little kids, because it doesn't seem right, does it?
No.
But they had no idea
Mm-hmm.
why we were talking about that standing there. Going through those hard moments was realize I don't want to ever want to be that person to somebody else. On that little journey of trying to do that for others, I came across this word called Genshai.
I've never heard of that word.
I wouldn't think most people have. In fact, I tried to look it up on the internet and I only saw it pop up one or two places. But it's a Hindi word that means never make someone else feel small.
That is awesome.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yes.
And if you think about it long and hard, it means charity to me.
Mm-hmm.
It means the pure love of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
It means realizing that every person up and down your street and everywhere you go has something going on behind their door that you don't know about. And you need to love them and just treat them like Christ would, no matter what. Never make someone feel small.
I love that.
Yes. I just, that's become really, really, really important to me. It's the mercy I hoped people would show me.
Right.
That I want to be showing to others.
That's awesome. Wow. Fantastic lesson number 2. Holy cow. All right. What else do you want to teach us today? Holy cow. I'm going to start taking notes.
Oh, you're sweet. You're sweet. It's taught me life is fragile. But I want to not let things go unsaid or undone. Because I almost lost my babies.
Mm-hmm.
They almost disappeared on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was in a really bad spot in my life, and I'm glad I bounced back. But what if I hadn't?
Yeah.
Life is so fragile. Every day is important. It's taught me to just remember that. And to remember to resolve things with relationships that are important to me.
And that's especially important. I know you've mentioned your spouse several times. Parenting special needs kids is tricky. I mean, parenting normal kids is tricky, right? But special needs kids always seem to throw an added little other dimension.
Yes.
It's another dimension in it. That's what it is.
Something else, isn't it?
That is awesome. Oh, I love that. So what advice would you give then to people who are struggling or in a dark place right now?
You know, I think Christ is always the answer. I would start there first, always. I mentioned a little bit about how habits are going through the motion. That saved me and would take me back to Christ all the time. If Christ is important to us somewhere in our life, we've done something that's brought us close to Him, right? Mm-hmm. And I think let's remember those things, whatever they were. For me, they were things like praying, reading my scriptures, listening to music would bring me close to God.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it looked like for me. And when I wasn't feeling it and I wasn't I was feeling like God was far away from me.
Mm-hmm.
I know better. I know He's not. I know it's me. That I am far away. That if I just do those habits, those things where I've come close to Him in my past,
Mm-hmm.
I keep them up, I'm going to fill Him again. That words came, dreams came, feelings came, answers came, healing. Whether the trial I wanted to go away went away or not, I was carried through.
Yeah. Because life is heavy.
Yeah.
And there are so many hard things. And I don't know how people go through on their own, honestly.
I don't either. I can't. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't function on my own.
No.
I need God. I need my Savior.
Mm-hmm.
He is healing.
That's awesome.
I think that it just takes me into something else I've learned, that the eternal perspective. I know that it's who I am is not just what I am here on this earth. Like, I know that we existed before we came here to earth,
Mm-hmm.
and that we are going somewhere after. And there is a whole eternal plan here
Mm-hmm.
that my Heavenly Father has for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about Sarah to walk through that door one more time and ask me what's for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
or why she can only have that much milk, or why only one more plate of food.
Mm-hmm.
It is so wearing.
Mm-hmm.
It is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Those daily pressures that come upon me every single time we eat.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping that eternal perspective of God sent me this child and I'm going places.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be stuck in this daily Groundhog's Day every single day
For forever.
for forever.
Right?
I'm not going to be, as much as it feels like that right now.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be. There's something more to come. Someday I'm going to be standing in front of Sarah when she has a perfected body and I have a perfected body, and we're going to be able to talk to each other, and I'm going to want to tell her everything.
I love that. And I know that's something that I've looked forward to as well with my kiddos, especially Nathan, that someday I'll be able to have a normal conversation with them. I look forward to that day.
You do. I bet you do.
I look forward. So I think it's okay to have that vision that, yeah, life is tough and it's going to be tough. But someday and forever, we'll be able to talk and have normal conversations with these special needs kids or kids that are struggling or whatever it is, people we love that are struggling. And it will all be okay. You know, if Jesus Christ will take those pains away and those sorrows and those, just like He healed here on earth, you know, we'll all be healed.
We will be.
What other advice would you give?
You know, I'm a huge advocate for my other two children.
Mm-hmm.
Siblings of special needs kids.
Mm-hmm.
They get overshadowed a lot.
They do, don't they?
A lot. It's happened in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I have to be reminded often of, wait, okay, where are they? Where are they? And
Where's my normal kids?
Yes, and go find them. And go look in their eye. Show them you care.
Mm-hmm.
Be there for them. And sometimes it looks like getting someone to just take the special needs kid upstairs in the other room or on a walk or out of the house so that I can actually have that conversation with that sibling.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it looks like just taking him out of school because the special needs kid's at school too. And taking him on a date and going, I'll help you make up your homework. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it looks like, no, Sarah, you can't do that today. I'm going to cancel your therapy. I'm going to Spencer's track meet. Sometimes it looks like me bringing Sarah, and we're going to cheer him on.
Mm-hmm.
I know a godsend that has helped us take care of our two other children is finding what funding in the state will provide us with respite care or help. Here in Utah, it happens to be DSPD.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Sarah on that wait list as soon as possible. And I would set a little alarm on my phone to call them once a month,
Mm-hmm.
the same time every month, to tell them what was going on in our home
Mm-hmm.
and not sugarcoat anything
Mm-hmm.
so that I could get help. I have help now. I have an aide that's funded to take care of Sarah so that I can be there for my kids, my other 2 kids. And our home has never been happier.
That's
ever.
Wonderful.
Like,
it is, and I think this goes for almost any scenario where you're a caretaker, a caregiver.
oh, for
You
sure.
have to have respite.
For sure. You've got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And you got to watch out for the other people that you're in charge of.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I have 3 babies, not 1. Yes. And I will just add, one of the most important things that comes first, right after God, is me and Justin.
Mm-hmm.
We have learned over these last 18 years of marriage to put each other first, right after God.
Mm-hmm.
Some people ask me, how can you do that? Like, not your kids first. Well, when me and Justin are happy, we're there for our kids. We're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We're great parents when me and Justin are happy. And this all began. We have these kids because I fell in love with Justin.
Mm-hmm.
He is the most amazing, amazing person to me. He's the only way I've made it through all of this, because he prays to God and he listens to inspiration with me.
Mm-hmm.
And he picks me up off the bathroom floor, drives me to therapy, takes me to find doctors I need and medication I need. And he helps me on those days when I've had it with his kids. You know?
Yeah.
Justin, they're your kids. What should I do with them? And he helps me with that. He is my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
He is, I don't know what I'd ever do without him. And I think we need to treat each other as spouses that way. Aren't we so blessed that when one's down or working on something really hard, the other one can lift them up?
Yeah.
I think that's another huge lesson learned.
I agree. I know that's one thing that when we were early in our marriage, we learned that continual courtship was imperative. And I know that not every household has that blessing of 2 spouses that are in it and committed and all that stuff. And so if you have that, God bless you. And if you don't, find other ways that you can get respite.
Absolutely.
Right?
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Find help. Ask for help. Rely.
It's too much to do alone.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
It really is. It really is. I think, and sometimes, look, Justin's across the country from me sometimes. He's not always right here with me.
Yeah.
So I've had to be creative in other ways, but I like joining associations that, like this Prader-Willi Association. I find other Prader-Willi families that go through the exact same thing as us. And I'll tell you what, of all the conferences and things we go to together, the favorites of mine are when we sit and just talk about experiences and laugh our head off and cry together and just relate. And I come home fueled again.
Yeah. Because there's other people that have been through similar things.
that have been through similar things. It's an okay thing to do that.
And I think that's important. Whatever the diagnosis is, find other people that are in that same boat. And you will have those laughing and crying experiences together.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
I would even say, like, there could be other areas of your life that you could find that group from. Like, maybe not other special needs parents always. Maybe it's a pilot association. Like, I joined a Facebook group of women, spouses of pilots, and it's one of my very favorite associations. And we laugh and cry about things. The day he leaves is horrible. And, you know, it's neat to just have something in common with a group of people.
Amen, sister. That is so, so important. I found that to be true as well. Wonderful. Any other tips or advice before we start winding up here?
We laughed at the beginning of this whole thing about how one of my passions is cleaning and organizing. And
there you go.
Nothing brings me greater joy than taking a closet and a disaster and turning it into just something that makes sense. I love it.
You need to come to my house.
I'm coming, Tamara. I love it. I love it. It makes, and not everybody does. I get laughed at for that. It is so funny and so silly. But I think over the years I have found that was somewhere I had control. And that I just get great satisfaction. I know it brings me joy. And so sometimes I literally set aside time on my calendar to clean a closet.
That's awesome, girl.
Yeah, I literally do that because it's hard to find that time for our passions, the things that we like, right?
That's true. You have to schedule it.
You have to schedule it.
Yeah, just like an appointment.
Just like an appointment, and give that a lot of time to myself to do whatever.
Well, why don't you share with me really quick what Bible verses have become important to you through this journey?
2 specifically stick out to me. One is Psalms 46:10.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you read it to us real
Be
quick?
still and know that I am God.
I love that.
And after listening to all my experiences, I'm sure you can see why I need to be still. When I take those moments out of my life and just sit, whether I'm on a mountain or I'm in my car, sometimes I go park in a parking lot, or I'm pouring over my scriptures in my bed, on the couch, in prayer. When I take the time to be still, I always leave there knowing that He is God. He is control. He's got it.
That's so awesome.
I think so. And then my other scripture, I've always loved the story of Mary in Luke and having a baby, Jesus Christ, born to her.
Mm-hmm.
What a marvelous miracle that is.
Oh, yes.
And then the story of Elizabeth in her later childbearing years, and having a baby born to her.
Yeah.
And what a miracle.
Yes, it was.
Like, it's just beautiful. And so this one particular scripture in Luke of chapter 1, verse 37, it says, "For with God, nothing shall be impossible."
And that's beautiful.
I love it because I've seen that work in my life. Nothing has been impossible. I made it out of that hospital room, not with a healed child. It's a really difficult situation in my hand, but it's not impossible to have peace and have a wonderful, beautiful journey ahead of me with her when God is involved. He makes it possible.
Like you said with Sarah, she shouldn't be doing what she's doing, running cross country and stuff like that. That's impossible.
Yeah.
But yet it was possible.
With God. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
It gives me the chills every time.
And if someone has found this information just so amazing and awesome and they just fell in love with you, is there a way that they can reach out and find you?
So probably the best way is I am willing to give my personal email. I would love to email you back. M_Kroff is my last name. And you spell that Kroff. And it's at hotmail.com.
Very good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You can also message me on Facebook.
Very good.
If you look me up.
And we'll put all these links in the show notes so that you can find them easily. Awesome. This is perfect. Megan, thank you so much for sharing this incredible journey. I mean, it really has been a journey, right? Ups and downs and sideways and loop-de-loop. It's a roller coaster. That's what it is.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing your roller coaster with us today. And for giving us hope that no matter how dark things are, things can get better as you turn to God. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to today's show. I know that there are many of you out there that are going through a hard time, and I hope you found things that have been useful today as you listen to the podcast. If you would like to access the show notes from today's podcast, visit my website. It is storiesofhopepodcast.com. That is where you'll find favorite quotes from today's episode and shareable memes. And those are fun because you can share them with your friends on social media. You will also find the links mentioned throughout today's episode so you don't have to remember what those were. And also all the tips that were shared. Sometimes tips are shared so much throughout an episode you forget. What were those great things? So go to the show notes, storiesofhopepodcast.com, to look up these fantastic resources. If someone kept coming to mind during today's episode, perhaps that means that you should share this with them. Maybe there was a story shared or a tip that they really, really need to hear. So go ahead and share this episode with them. May God bless you, especially if you are struggling, with hope to carry on and with the strength to keep going when things get tough. Remember to walk with Christ, and He will help bear that burden. Above all else, remember, God loves you.